Okay, ready? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Planning and Highways Committee of Sharpsbury Town Council for November 2021. So, public participation. Do we have members of the public who would like to address the council? Michelle.
My name is Michelle Orford. I'm just wondering if there's been any more updates on Sheepers Lane from the last meeting Claire went to, apparently, and you emailed me to say that there was going to be quotes. Work to be done on the hill. Has there been any more updates on that?
Okay, so I followed that up, and there aren't any more updates that I'm able to provide in public. It's being processed, and I have seen email exchanges between the private individuals, so I know that it's moving, but unfortunately that's all I can update beyond what I said to you last time. Chair, would you like me to read out the statement that I gave to Michelle Orford, because not everybody will have necessarily heard it?
Please do. Yeah.
So following a meeting of the interested parties on the 3rd of November at the Town Council offices, an outline specification for the repairs has been given to the landowner and their structural engineer. The specification would enable a suitable repair, and that would see the full reopening of the footpath that fulfills the requirements of the nearby listed buildings and its conservation area status. The next step is to fully work up the specification to enable contractors to quote for the works. Once a quote has been received, further permissions can then be sought, such as planning permission involving listed building and conservation area consent and tree works in a conservation area. And we had been hoping at that meeting that before the end of November, the quotes will have been received. I have seen that there has been progress, but not the final quotes received yet that I'm aware of.
Secondly, I'm a bit concerned about ATS building site. I see you've got that on your agenda tonight. The main thing is the water, surface water and sewage drainage from that site coming and being channeled down into M43. We are already on overload down there with our water and sewage, with flooding problems. Now, I'm not sure who actually gave permission for Town Hill to be trimmed of all the wall ivy and the trees along Town Hill in the last fortnight. Did was it the Town Council that trimmed all the ivy and all the trees along? You know?
I'll have to look into that and get back to you.
I'll tell you for why. Because it's been trimmed, and I've been on the Dorset Highways for the last 2 months to get the gully at the side of Town Hill cleaned of leaves. I've had quite a mission on my hands, and whoever trimmed, I don't know if it was our town council, because I know Mike was out there in the road directing traffic. But if it's highways, then they need to come back and sweep again, because they've done it all, and cleared it all, and now it's all filled back up again with the trimming. So I'm back to square one again with blocked roads. So I'm very concerned about who I need to contact now to get that swept again, because it was done beautifully at the time. And also, my worries on Thursday, you know, we've got this town pedestrian vehicles coming through. You're always on about health and safety, and I am very concerned as a member of this public of Sharpsbury. You cannot have pedestrians in this high street and vehicles. There's a great dusting line coming through the town. There were delivery lorries the other day. I was trying to step out into the road with my grandson. It is not on. You've either got to have one or the other. And I think before a serious accident happens in this town, it needs to be sorted and sorted soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Anyone else?
I want to go at the end, Mr. Chair.
Do you want to go? Can you make your mind, David, please?
Thank you. Right, okay, thank you, Chair. On your list tonight is landscape of the A30. And the facility development is new on houses and breakthrough industrial sites. I can work on 2 hats in that respect because I'm a partner in a business in Sharpsbury. And we are absolutely bursting with seams. enjoy spirit at the moment. We've got machines all over the place, and we cannot expand anymore because there are no spare industrial units. In relation to that, now is Mary Alison Khan representative. We are currently dealing with a planning application to expand the Melbourne Business Park. And we know when we look around the Melbourne Business Park, there's a number of businesses which would love to be in Sharpsbury, but they can't, and the nearest they can get is Melbourne Business Park. As much the same as you go down to Assembly, the Station Road Complex, or Chalcott Farms, and other places. Therefore, for somebody to say there's no demand for industrial units, in my opinion, and our opinion as well, is fundamentally wrong. If you do decide to object on those grounds, then we as a parish council would 100% support you, but we do. And that's your choice. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Anyone else? Bernard?
Yes, I did file an email to the chair. I know it's not on the agenda. Is it possible to make a comment on the solar farm?
Public, you can say whatever you want.
Yes. It's seemingly inexplicable, the sort of U-turn not to object on the previous application for solar farm. The second application is on the basis of additional planting. I noticed that that's on the northern perimeter of the site, and to not object on the basis that there's going to be additional planting is all the more so inexplicable because it's actually on the north side and therefore ineffective in terms of screening the critical views which are from Castle Hill and Littledown in Shaftesbury, which have been totally ignored in the application. The second item I'd like to comment on, ask a question on, has there been any progress on the compensation issues with Lidl with regard to the felled beech along Christie's Lane? And lastly, in regards to Mampits Lane, the proposed community centre, community facility, have there been any results from the questionnaire? And I gather that there was an open day on site. So I wonder if you could comment on those three items, please.
I don't have anything more to say about the solar farm, Bernard. We've discussed it twice. People made their decisions. I have consulted subsequent to the emails that you sent me and Gillian sent me with other councillors to see if there would be enough support to have 6 members to bring a motion to revisit this before the 6-month period. There wasn't. And in fact, people went so far as to say that they positively would not support a motion to discuss it again. I fully understand and appreciate how passionately you feel about this, but as I emailed to Gillian, it seems the majority view of this council is that we are in a climate emergency and solar farms are needed. In terms of the little beaches, I have emailed Councillor Cook on several occasions and he did call me from his sick bed today. So Dorset Council did meet with Lidl. Lidl have agreed to compensation. Your plan, your excellent plan, has been adopted in full by Dorset Council. We don't know how much Lidl are, how much has been agreed for Lidl to pay. What we've been told is that until the money is in the bank, they're not going to divulge what that is. I won't speculate now why that might be, but it's happening and they hope to start works in January. And that is as much as I know on that subject. In terms of Mampits, it's not something that this particular committee gets involved with. I don't know if anyone else wants to make any comments here. Is it appropriate to make comments? Or
the only thing I would suggest, Chair, is that nothing has changed since the resolution at GEM, which is once the data has been compiled, it would be submitted to Dorset Council and circulated to councillors Oh, so there's nothing further to add from Jen.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes.
I was just going to say that we're working through responses now with the MAC committee to validate them, and you know, as soon as that work is complete, it's moving swiftly. Obviously, we need to do things like personal details, etc., and bring them together.
Lovely, thank you, Bernard. Does anyone else wish to speak? Charlotte?
I'd just like to publicly thank the Chair for her amazing letter to Dorset Council regarding affordable housing to Hannah Smith. I'm sure it's an item on the agenda, so I'm sure it'll be discussed, but I think some of us just be interested to know whether or not there's been a response to have that meeting. And also, because it was such a fantastic letter, I think some of us also feel that it would have been good for it to have gone to some of the more hierarchy as well, so that everyone there knows our feeling and, you know, and knows that actually a letter like that can be written. So from quite a few of us here, I'd like to thank you. So,
Oh, well, that's very kind of you, Charlotte. Thank you very much. In response to that, no, I haven't had a response from the original recipients, and I sent it to the head of planning for North Dorset, I sent it to the case officer, and I sent it to the head of housing enabled. Now, the reason I didn't circulate it further is that it is my personal opinion that when trying to send a letter, an email or a letter, or any kind of correspondence in order to get a result, it's better to just play by the book initially, because I didn't want to be seen to be showboating or showing off to the town or my peers or whatever. And in my opinion, that very frequently happens when you have a distribution list that is a cast of thousands. So what it does mean is that as we haven't had a response, it can now escalate up the chain, and we can discuss when we discuss it in officers' reports to whom it should go, because then we are in a position to say, we sent this letter and we haven't had a response. So sadly, we're having to send it to you. And it just, you know, gives us a bit more grist to the mill, really. So that's the thought process. But thank you very much. It's very
well,
kind.
it's from all of us, obviously, we're all very impressed.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else want to speak? Richard? Oh, sorry. No.
Yes, Chair, having come straight from the news tonight to this meeting, the manifold travails of this council and Dorset Council fell into insignificance. Incompetence seems to be endemic at the moment. However, confining myself to issues here in this town, there's so much that needs talking about. I'll have to try and condense myself as much as possible. It's enough to tempt me to back into politics, to be honest with you. Can I start off by first of all asking you, Chair, or maybe through you, the clerk, whether this council is aware of the row going on at the moment between Tesco and Lidl about the pedestrian access, which Lidl created onto the service road, which Tesco's are persisting in blockading on the grounds that A, they say it is not a public right of way, and B, that they consider it's a danger to people to have it open, regardless of the fact that about 50 yards further down the road, there is a public access across the very same service road. This council may remember, and maybe a few people on this council won't remember, but that service road is actually the property of this town council. The whole of Tesco's land is in the freehold of this town council. Tesco bought a long freehold, quite a short freehold, leasehold actually, but not. So I just want to know, the first question is, are you aware of this issue? And is the town council intending to get involved and try and do anything about it? Tesco are being adamant that they will block it. Lidl, I don't like it being blocked, but there's not much they can do about it because the blockading is on the Tesco side of operations. So straightforward question, are you aware of it and are you doing anything about it?
Firstly, yes, I am aware of it, and I had heard that it had been blocked, and I went up to have a look at it and see exactly what the access looked like and where all the various points were. So the actual pathway looks like it is on the land that Lidl bought, and the actual opening is, as you have said, opposite an old pedestrian crossing.
It was the old access to the free car.
Yes, it was. Yes, absolutely. Are we going to do anything about it? Well, something to be discussed this evening, because we've had various emails between us going, what's going on? What is the problem? And, you know, the thing is, we have to start with the legalities of it. You know, who has right of way, who owns the land, who has jurisdiction over it? Are Tesco within their rights to refuse access via that? Was it part of their planning application that there would be access from Tesco's access land onto their land, and so forth? You see where I'm going with it. So yes, we kind of need to.
I mean, it's very obvious to see what's happening here. It's rivalry between the two competing markets, but from the wider town's point of view, it's petty, it's trivial, and it's extremely irritating to pedestrians who, whether they park in Lidl's and go into town or park in Tesco and go into Lidl's, surely it's neither here nor there as far as the town is concerned. But it's clearly causing aggravation, and you're aware of it, so that's the important thing. I want to then please go on to ask another question, probably of the clerk through you, Chair, and that is, has the clerk had any feedback yet from Dorset Council Highways, or Dorset Highways, about the proposed works in Biddeford? You were going to find out and let me know.
This is the.
Yes.
Report.
Thank you. No, I haven't had any response, Chair.
Okay.
Right, Chair, well, it might assist the council to be told then tonight that they have decided not to do any roadworks in Biddeford. I just wanted to find out whether the council knew that.
No.
Why you don't, I have no idea, because I'm sure that question was asked.
I don't. It doesn't mean that the office haven't been informed. I can only speak for what I'm aware of. Okay.
Well, Dorset Highways have formally said that there are no roadworks planned for Biddeford. So where that came from, I have no idea in the first place.
Well, maybe we could check that out, Claire, and get a confirmation from Dorset Highways.
Like previous people, I would like to congratulate you, as I would Andy said, for your very strongly worded letters, which are needed in this day and age, and more people should do it, especially elected councillors, and fully support your. I think you were asking for car parks in rather towns to have more say over their car parking and their charges. Quite right. In fact, I would suggest this town council goes further and ask for all the car parks to be returned to this town council to control. And if all towns did that, and all parishes did that, I'm sure there'd be a lot happier communities as a consequence. There's this obsession with Dorset County wanting to control everything because they're hoping to make a bunch of parking fines with fees. It's got to stop, as far as I can see. On that sort of similar point, I'd also like to put my weight behind this absurd argument that's going on and is on the agenda tonight about the high street and the market. There's either it's clear there's either a market which doesn't have pedestrians, or there is no market and the traffic flows freely. You can't have your cake and eat it, which is what it seems to me the county council is suggesting. You either close the entire high street, have stalls, and let people roam freely, but you can't have both. You can't have traffic and stalls. I can pass on a bit of information that you may already know, but many people don't, and that is that one of the reasons that, for example, the buses are insisting on going through the high street is because one company has said if they can't go through the high street, they won't come to Sharpsbury at all. And the second one is because I think it's X2, or whatever the name is, was a recipient of about £300,000 worth of taxpayers' money. And with the support, I'm afraid to say, of one of our county councillors, the wit Derek Beer, who loves buses more than his own is supporting them in that request. So with support of people like Dorset Council and other people in that position, the bus companies are pushing very hard to go through the high street. That they either can or they can't. But in my opinion, a lot of people's opinion, I think that was the case that Michelle was making, if you've got a street market, close the damn high street to everything that moves. I've been going up the High Street on a Thursday with about 12 plus cars, vans, what have you, going up and down the High Street. You can't do it. And if the county council is saying you must do it, then tell them what you do is either close the High Street, but they, of course, they have the final say. That's the problem. So I think the dilemma for this town and this council is, do you put up with a compromise with stalls absurdly looking inwards, or others from the High Street, but inwards to the pavement, while buses and vans roar up and down the High Street? That's not that's no town in their right sense would tolerate that. Moving on, there's an item in tonight's paper which puzzles me, and it maybe through you again, the clerk can explain it. 4.5.1 under the officer's report refers to the fact that this council, in fact it was this committee, requested Dorset Council's planning office to attend a meeting with the town council for the purpose of understanding affordable housing in section 106 information. If I was at the same meeting that was discussed, that meant there's no relation to what was agreed. I remember John Lewis sitting more or less where you are and saying we demand that the senior officers at Dorset Council come here and tell us what happened with the beech trees, what happened with the lies that were told over affordable housing. Why are they trying to destroy Diners Hollow, which David came here to plead for some support for this council? It wasn't just for that one issue, it was about 3 or 4 issues. So I don't understand why it's been limited and under this minute to this one simple issue. It was much more than that. And I hope this council doesn't backtrack on that, because it's happened before when people from Dorchester have wound their weary way up to the frozen north to address this council. They should do it again. And people like Matt Crosser should be in this room. I can't think of any other names, but there are some. So that finally, I think I've got one more point, if you wouldn't mind, Chair.
So we've gone over the 20 minutes, Richard.
Okay, well, just one final point is,
I
this goodness that Bern has raised about the Manpit Square consultation. I understood that the summary results, the preliminary results, were to be made available to all councillors on the 11th of December, which is this Saturday. Is that still the case? And can I ask also why, at this stage, the preliminary is Dorset Council being sent results? What's it got to do with them at this stage? So please, can I have confirmation that all councillors, all members, will get a copy of the preliminary findings by the end of this week?
Okay, I got it.
Is Dorset Council not being sent the results at this stage?
Okay.
When the final results aren't going
Got
to
it.
them until January.
Richard, we got it. Thank you very much indeed. Piers, do you want to answer that?
We are currently on track to make sure that the preliminaries,
No, it was.
we're currently on track to be able to provide the initial results to members on Saturday, all things going well. We've had a phenomenal response, and there are a cross number of responses to go through to validate. The reason we are sharing the data in line with the resolution from the last GEM is to assist Dorset Council in their decision-making process over who becomes the nominated body for the land at Manpit Square.
Why do it before you've got the proper results?
No, it will be the proper result, not.
They're preliminary, they're summary results. According to Greenlogan's notes, they are preliminary results, they're summary results. Are they the final results? Well, they can't.
The
Okay.
responses are in, we can't change them.
Well, he says the final results will be made available to Jen, implying that there's a 2-stage process.
Well, so there are the raw responses, and then we will be analysing them to provide more useful data than just here's a spreadsheet of hundreds and hundreds of results. Does that make sense?
Right, but that will have to make sense for now, because this is not an agenda item for this evening. So, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We will now start the meeting. So, apologies.
Chair, I have apologies from Councillor Chase. He was abroad over the weekend, so he's isolating at the moment in line with government requirements. And Councillor Proctor had a prior engagement.
Okay. do we need to?
You need to vote to accept them if you wish to accept them, and if you wish to accept one and not the other, then you can also choose to do that.
Okay,
Propose to accept both of them.
fine. Thank you very much for the vote. All those in favour? Lovely,
Thank you very much.
Declarations of interest. Obviously, if you should think of anything in the course of the meeting, do please let us know. Right, officer report to the committee.
Minutes, Chair,
Oh,
apologies.
minutes, I'm so sorry. I always miss something out. Right, minutes to be adopted, 2nd of November. Is everybody, John, have you read them?
I've read them.
Super.
Chair, can I just make, I was just alerted this morning, this evening, that there was one amendment that Councillor Chase was marked as both absent and present. He was indeed absent. We have adjusted the draft. So if you're happy as a committee to accept that that change will be made, when we send them out for signature, that will have already been done.
Okay, thank you. In that case, I second. All those in favour? Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, sorry, where was I? What's the reports? Okay, so very quickly, Yale 2 Brewers Inn, there was a very lengthy 3.5 hour licensing meeting, which actually was very well handled by Dorset. And the decision is that the pub will only be able to put on live music every other weekend. They have to take frequent decibel readings. This needs to be available to view for Dorset Council Environmental Health. They need to make their gig list available to anyone who asks for it, and they need to make any complaints that are received by them available to Dorset Council. They seem, from what I've read, quite happy with this result. So we shall see how it goes. And decisions. Right, yes. So Dorset Council's Northern Area Planning Committee met on the 30th of November. This committee is asked to note and consider any response to the decisions made. Well, this was a meeting regarding Red Road and then amending their planning consent so that they no longer have to build bungalows, but that they will be building 2-storey houses, amongst other things. So we objected. We were represented by Councillor Tim Cook, in a manner of speaking. And yes, Andy, would you like to say something?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've watched the video twice of this meeting. I felt that Northern Area Planning Committee completely failed in their duty to consider this request seriously. For instance, they did not take on board the very full responses the Town Council made, or the very full responses the AOB made. It was full of opinion by the planning officer, which was fine. I've written to Sherry Jesperson, the chair, and expressed my concerns. I have had a letter back, and I will be writing to her again following this meeting. And Chair, it seems to me, having watched the meeting of the Northern Area Committee and having received the reply I did receive, that probably the best way forward is that a representative from Sharpsbury Town Council Planning Committee attends every single Northern Area Committee, particularly where there is items of relevance to the town, so they can make representations during public sessions and answer any questions. So, for example, at this Northern Area Planning Committee, Redrow were allowed to make a statement which was full of falsehoods, and I will say falsehoods because I was involved in debates with Redrow, and they did not tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth in their statement. Unfortunately, there was no opportunity presented for the Town Council to respond, and I felt that was a dereliction. It was not a good meeting, and I've shared my concerns with Claire and with yourself, colleagues. I will be writing again to the chair of the committee.
Okay, thank you very much. I should also say that I was made aware of a comment made by Councillor Carol Jones, who is on the planning committee. She's a district councillor for Stennis to Newton, who made a rather provocative and unsubstantiated comment to the press that Sharpsbury Town Council had not bothered to be in communication with Redrow, and that would suggest they weren't bothered by the change in application. It never fails to amaze me our district council would put the word of a developer before the word of a town council, would not make any effort to ask the town council what efforts they had made to communicate. Was this true? Completely extraordinary. So I had wrote to her to ask her to explain in more detail what she meant and what her evidence for that comment was. Needless to say, I have not had a response. But we will not be leaving it there, ladies and gentlemen, I can assure you. Karen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Right, okay, fair enough. I listened also, I was away, so I normally do attend these sorts of meetings. And I do listen very carefully to the language that's used. What I've noticed, because I go to so many planning meetings with local planning authorities, I've noticed that the language that they're using is that case of Redrow was, or the case against it, because Councillor Cook did put forward an initial review. The other councillors were actually saying that the case that Councillor Cook put to the committee was not defendable. So I think that tends to indicate that we seriously need to up our game. So the stats that they were actually saying was that the plans were already approved for 32 houses, but they were adding 2. And in reality, it was really going from 1.5 stories up to 2. So the bits that I think that we probably missed, knowing that going forward, that as it was in the local plan, and it wasn't, the statement that's refusing was not defendable. The whole area of road adoption has been completely missed. So they were stating, what I didn't like was that the questions that were asked during the planning meeting, neither case officer knew the answer. So the sort of questions that were getting asked were about the block paving, and they couldn't say clearly on road adoption, but they believed that all block paving would not be adopted by the road. And so then the next question was, well, is that actually going to be a private road? Are the residents going to be told that it's going to be private and that they're going to pay the liability, or is it going to be a managed company? And again, the case officer said this is not part of a planning application consideration, and they didn't know the answer. Well, of course, we all know the terrible situation that we've had with the new estate. So I felt that was completely unacceptable. I also, and if I was there, I would have actually, and if I wasn't overseas, I would have actually said something. The other thing is that the upkeep of the trees, they also stated, one of the councillors asked what was the upkeep of the trees, because they wanted to know who was responsible. Again, neither case officer, and there were 2 case officers there, neither case officer knew the answer. And they didn't know whether it was a management company. So that when it's a management company, it actually means that the cost of it goes on to the residents. So not only do the residents pay council tax, they also have to pay their management companies. And if anyone's very close to what has been going on in the new estate with Remus, they know that the management company charges get out of control. The other area that they didn't seem to give a clear answer to was the 5-year housing supply. And the bit that I think that we as a council need to start sharpening up on is the climate change issue. So there was, if I can just pull it up, in the committee papers, it was number 14 of the committee papers. And it says an objection has been received in relation to the lack of provision of solar panels within the scheme. And then it goes on to say there is currently no policy requirement for developers to provide renewable energy sources to properties. Well, I think this is a big mistake that again this council is really completely missed the boat on the neighbourhood plan, because they should have specified that all new builds have solar panels. And I think that this ties into Bernie's comments and Gillian's comments is, if this town council had mandated that every new build had a solar panel and exploited all known renewable energy technologies, we wouldn't have a whole scandal of 90 acres of land being going for solar panels. And believe you me, anything that goes, the 90 acres going to solar panels is that the next step is a massive housing development.
Right, okay, no, Karen, I'm going
yeah.
to start wrapping it up there. So I just want to respond to a couple of things. So you're absolutely right. I mean, your concerns about the road adoption.
Why are you responding to my?
Brought up the neighbourhood plan, and I just wanted to respond about that, because if you knew anything about neighbourhood plans, Karen, you would know that we absolutely were not allowed to be prescriptive. We could not say you cannot build in Sharpsbury unless you put solar panels on a building, because trust me, if we could have done, we would have done.
No, complete rubbish.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion.
Did, and the Open Spaces Group wrote into the Neighbourhood Plan Committee on numerous occasions, giving examples of where you could absolutely dictate that solar panels would be put onto houses.
Well, Karen, I would be absolutely thrilled. No, I'm sorry. I would be thrilled if you could provide evidence of that, because I would really like to see it. Well, I haven't seen your evidence. If it's not national planning policy framework policy that all new builds should have renewable energy in them, what the hell do you think one town council in the middle of the West Country can do about it? I have no idea.
Well,
but now you're just going off.
That you know more than Harriet Townsend, you don't.
What, I didn't even know who Harriet Townsend
You put
is.
a policy in and it gets that.
Oh, Karen, you're just really going off track now. So, moving on to 4.4, updates and actions from previous meetings.
Apologies.
Yeah.
In amongst the conversations about planning decisions, there was the discussion about whether to send anyone. What would be really sensible is, because we can't always be sure that this committee or the council will meet before the next Northern Area Planning and know what's on the agenda.
Yeah.
If you would like to, you could resolve maybe a first, second and third from the committee, so that if first person can't go in the second and so on. That might make it easier so that we can respond quickly without having to call a meeting.
Well, Andy.
I was going to say, if we can, do we know the dates the next Northern Area Committee?
I can pull them up if you like. Hold on.
That would be good, yes.
Give me a moment.
And then maybe if we could share our availability with the chair and then take it from there, yeah? I don't think we need to make a decision right here and now, but we can.
It rather depends who's available at the time.
Yeah.
Can you just, if you don't mind waiting, then just.
Yeah, certainly.
There's something maybe we could pick up outside the meeting, if it's just a date.
Okay. Northern Area Planning. I have to click through their calendar.
Okay, well, I tell you what, thank you for trying, Claire, but let's move on, and we will just note that you will inform the Planning and Highways Committee of forthcoming Northern Area Committee meetings. Updates and actions from previous meetings. The only thing I thought of there was Little Beaches, because I didn't know if it would get brought up in the public participation. So I answered your question, Bernard, so I don't have anything more to add about that. John, do you want to say something?
There are a couple of questions, isn't there? First of all,
We agreed last month that we would have an item on Iron's Hollow tonight. I guess that has not been time to prepare a suitable report. Is it planned to be on the next meeting?
I'd like to put it on the next PNH. I just don't know how much time we're going to have to look at that, what with Christmas and everything.
So Chair, the reason it wasn't on tonight is because we didn't have anything further to decide, and each meeting agenda item must say what the purpose of that item is, and the risk of putting something for general chat is that it drifts. But if you would like to put it on as a tentative, I will need to issue the agenda for next planning before we break for Christmas, because we're back on the first Tuesday in January. If I tentatively put it on there and we can pull something together where we know what the purpose is.
Okay, well, what I can endeavour to do in that case is to speak to David in the interim. David is going abroad, hopefully on the 28th, hopefully for him. And if we can get some information together that is suitable for the meeting, then we'll put that on the agenda. Okay, is that all right, David? We'll talk in the meantime. Great, Andy.
So John had a point.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, John.
There's not necessarily a great urgency in this discussion. I don't think. I don't want it to fall down any cracks.
Okay.
The second one is that about the annual court appeal, we agreed that there would be a press release. This time to the fact that we're asking for our explanation. We haven't seen one yet. It's the one.
My apologies, that did slip. The letter went, but not a press release. Would this committee like to confirm if you still wish that press release to go, and whether you want that beefed up in light of no response from the letter having been sent?
What do you think?
I can do it either as a press release to say that we've written, or we can do an open letter that would then be published and made available through our press links as well.
I'm in two minds about that. Do you have any thoughts, Andy?
Well, we resolved to do a press release. I think if we can tie that up with our urgent need to meet with the right level of officer from Dorset, I think that'd be a good thing, because there are a number of things all going on at the same time now, and I think it's all part of keeping the pressure on and our very real concerns at the forefront.
Okay, so is that an answer? Is that a clear enough answer for you, Claire?
So a press release or a public statement?
Yes. Well, I think a letter and the press release on the back of the letter saying, we, council, have written to Dorset asking for and then the ladies and gentlemen of the press can do what they need to do.
Yeah, and we will be discussing that at 4.5.1. Yeah, no problem. Okay, John?
Thank you, Chair.
Yes. Andy?
It's just really, it doesn't actually fit within free parking days policy, but it is about parking, and it's in a place that's suitable. It was raised with me yesterday that there was a problem with Bell Street parking. There is a problem with Bell Street parking. Though the new rates should not come in until January, they are being applied now, and they're being applied incorrectly. So if you're parking for less than 4 hours, you're paying £6. That shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
Claire has been onto it and has got hold of the right people, and they are endeavouring to get Just Heart to fix things. However, I'd like to take it a step further with the agreement of the committee that we, as a council, write to Dorset Council and urge them or demand that they make every effort to repay people who have been overcharged. There is no legal framework to charge them that. It's obviously a civil matter, but the Dorset Council should look at repaying them. And it will be very straightforward if they view the Just Park Act to find out who those people are.
Yeah.
There'll be other people who will need to put in a claim, I suspect, but that is a matter for Dorset Council to sort out. The important point here is Dorset Council must repay people who have been overcharged through their area.
Okay, and you're proposing that?
Well, I am proposing that if it's acceptable to put that as a motion, even though it doesn't form part of the agenda.
We'll get the same result, but I won't like to take it as a motion because it's not identified on the agenda, but it's a reasonable thing for me to do under my role as clerk. So
Delegated.
I can say that the committee has, it'll be a delegated.
Yes,
But if I can have a murmur of
fully
agreement around the
support-
table, that would be helpful.
Were Andy able to put that forward as a motion, I would have seconded it.
Thank you.
I just suggest it might be incidental to that high street parking. It's related. I mean, part of the
It is, but
they want to run up High Street, they want to check out car parking prices to make costs more attractive.
well, let's discuss that when we come to.
This is about incorrect charges and people being refunded. There is a separate,
Yeah.
wholly right argument about.
In fact, David did actually call me as well to say that his wife, because obviously she drives into Sharpsbury to use our facilities, and parks in Bell Street Car Park, has downloaded the app in order to be able to park there because, of course, the cash facility isn't available still. And since she downloaded the app, and obviously you have to submit your registration number, possibly coincidentally, but we don't know, she started receiving unwanted text messages and mail about MOT things and insurance possibilities. Obviously, I just wonder, actually, on behalf of David, has anyone else heard of any similar issues?
That would be an egregious breach of duty.
Yeah, it would.
Chair, I also have the app, and the app does remind you when your MOT is due, and whether you want to take out additional insurance. It does do that.
Wow.
Unless David's wife and I are exceptionally lucky in getting those extra options.
I couldn't possibly comment.
Check, back on the point.
Yes.
If that letter goes, should it be suggested that until they've sorted out the cash system, this is then parking charges?
Why not? I think we should try it. Good idea.
The obvious solution.
Yeah. That is the obvious conclusion.
So, Chair, can I just ask the clerk is happy with the delegated request, shall we say, for a better expression?
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Super. Okay. Right. Anything else anyone wants to add about free parking? I think, you know, the parking rate and everything, which we haven't known about, so we had to scramble, which is why they're all at this end of the year. Anyway, and Dorset changed them from last year, I have to say, so that was all sort of news. Anyway, right, other updates. So coming on to the email requests that I sent to head of planning and housing enabling, asking for a meeting. I didn't say, you know, we'd be ever so grateful if you could come. I just said, we need you to come for a meeting. Please give me some dates when you're available, to come to Sharpsbury, you know. Now, the, anyway, and that was made available for people to read. So if you want to read it and you haven't read it, it is available on the website. And if you click on today's meeting, just beneath the header, it says agenda, email to development management. Yeah. And then what's the other thing? In the meet, oh, it doesn't really matter, but anyway, and PowerPoint. Hurrah, brain's still functioning. Right, okay, so as I have already said, no, I have not had a response from anybody or an acknowledgement of the email. So my thoughts were that it should go to Councillor David Walsh, who is the portfolio holder for planning, Councillor Sherry Jesperson, who is the chair of the planning committee, and CC Matt Prosser, who is chief executive of Dorset Council. And something along the lines of, you know, we sent this in good faith to head of planning. We haven't had a response. This issue isn't going away. We need to have some satisfaction and from you, or words to that effect. Now, Karen.
Yes, planning do not.
I realise that, yeah.
Well, is to go to.
The holder for housing enabling.
Right.
Frank,
Graham Carr-Jones.
I think I actually suggested Groundwater.
okay,
I can't remember who the head of department is. But that's the.
well, he actually received an email.
Sorry, is this about building affordable homes or the assignment process?
It's about all sorts of things and it's quite detailed. I suggest you read it.
Yeah, I wasn't aware you'd written this, apologies. But if it's about the building of affordable homes, then that would be David and Mark Garrity. If it's about the housing register.
It's about affordable housing,
So
basically.
if it's the allocation side of things, then that's Graham Carr-Jones and somebody else.
Okay, that'd be great. If you could let me know, that'd be super. And yes, and I will double check that we have included all relevant personnel when this gets escalated up the food chain. Now, was there anything else anyone wanted to say on that? Good. So bus improvement plan.
Planning applications, Chair?
No, I'm still on opposite.
Oh,
report
sorry,
to the
you're still
committee.
on Scott.
So we were still, there was a link to an email and to Dorset Council's bus service improvement plan. John, you had made some notes on this. Did you want to share?
I've not read all of this, it's sort of 42 pages, and there's probably about 40 pages of pictures of buses. So, I'm not pretending to know, but there's like one or two things which fit in with our, first of all, this increase in car consumption to make motoring into towns less attractive. What I would suggest is that the whole document I would describe as pie in the sky at the moment is full of fantastic ideas. So I would propose that parking charges are left as they are, instead they've got a bus service that will attract people away from the car. That's the first one. I propose work closely with town council in doing this parking review. I'd like to know where the actual that is, because I knew nothing about any consultation at all.
No, nobody did, John.
So there needs to be a few factual corrections made. I think that's it for the time being. But certainly the business about the cash machines in workings connected issue.
Andy. Oh, sorry.
I just wonder whether we ought to get involved in making submissions to that research that they're doing, because they obviously don't know anything about Sharpsbury. They don't know what they're doing to Sharpsbury, of course, and what's down high school. And at some point, we're going to have to tell them. They've got to ask here, we're going to have to do something to tell them. Now, do we resolve to reply to directly to explain Sharpsbury's different to Dorchester and Weymouth? We somehow need to get our message through to them that we've got a problem. They have no clue about it.
Yeah.
Other things, I think some time ago, well, a few months ago, we had to find some data on usage of the buses. And I think we were not able to get that data. And I think that's very important, because I'm sure the common experience here, you see the X2 go by, it's empty. I have seen one person on an X2 though. I will say, I have seen one person. They're sitting over the rear wheel up. But saying that, I do actually think, John, you hit on a point there, which is that we need some more data ourselves. And I think there is an opportunity, and I just want to float this as a suggestion, that we consider a survey of bus use and actually find out from the Sharpsbury services they use, what services they would like, and the sort of frequency, because I think there are some. I think that it seems to be wholly sensible to have a very regular service from here to Gillingham, which ties in with the trains arriving, particularly from Waterloo, so people can commute more easily. I'm sure there are lots of other things that need to be looked at. But if we're going to have a debate and try and develop a discussion on what the bus service should be within town and its environs, we actually need that information.
Yes, I completely agree, and this ties in with the conversation later about markets on Thursdays and so forth, because the directive to turn the schools to face back into the pavement is directly, because of reintroducing two-way buses into the high street, we can't do much about it unless we have evidence. And so we need to get evidence. So we need to do our own survey. We need to engage with the people of Sharpsbury to see what they think. What do they think of buses in the high street? Do they think having buses going up and down a high street is vital to buses being used? Do they agree with the bus companies in that respect? How many people use buses? Would they use buses more if there were more? And what kind of buses would they like? Where would they like the buses to take them? Would this encourage them to use more buses and not use their cars and so forth? What we need is a detailed survey through something like SurveyMonkey, which I think, is that what you use, Claire, for the shopper engagement survey?
We've used that, and we also use Microsoft Forms for surveys, so both are available.
Okay, super. But anyway, something which members of the public can go straight into, so it doesn't come through the office and have to be inputted. So I think we actually need to sort of get down and find out what's going on here and what people actually want.
So does that need to go onto an agenda?
Yes. Yes, it does need to go onto agenda. Does it? So could we? Does that need to go onto agenda? Can we just? It does. Okay.
Yeah. Are you up to doing that on the first Tuesday back in January?
Yeah, I'll give it a go. Yes. Yes.
Okay, got that.
Super. Right. So, everyone happy with officers' reports to the committee before we move on?
Thank you.
Good. Right. Planning applications. Okay. 5.2.1. To modify deed of variation with agreement dated 14th of March, land at Littledown, Sharpsbury. So this request,
I don't appear to be sure.
is between Andy.
Sorry, whenever I'm just indicating I would like to speak.
Oh, okay.
When you're ready.
So just for the benefit of members of the public, the affordable homes allocation at Littledown has been taken on by a housing association, and they and Redrow are looking to make a deed of variation, essentially so that if the housing association properties have not been allocated to those who need affordable, that is to suggest that there wouldn't be enough people possibly who needed affordable homes, and therefore they were vacant, that after 3 months only, they would then be able to sell them on the open market. So, hardly need to suggest what I think about that, but because easily of course, they could just say, well, nobody wants them, or the kind of affordable homes that we have are not suitable for the people who are on the Sharpsbury Affordable Housing Register, at which point one should say, why haven't what is the local people need been built at Redrow then? But this is all part of trying to understand how on earth they work out affordable housing. Anyway, Andy.
I'd just like to propose that we refuse this application on the grounds that there is clearly a need for affordable housing, as was recently demonstrated by the Dorset Council submission to the planning inspector during the Enmore Green discussions. Therefore, I cannot see that we could possibly allow this to go ahead, and 3 months is a ludicrous period of time as well, considering as Christmas is the first month and
Yes.
the New Year's. So, and also it is well known fact within the estate agent market that December, January, February are dead months. So, so I propose that we refuse this application.
Okay. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Right, but you wanted to speak, Karen, before we go to
Well, I
a
was
vote.
going to second it.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah,
so-
absolutely disgusted.
Yeah.
Really disgusted. Something. It's again extremely smelly. What is going on? At one point, they're saying this is Dorset Council are saying that these farcical figures or flawed figures or made-up figures of over 600 affordable housing needed in Sharpsbury, no evidence, go straight to the inspector for M1 Court, and then weeks later we're seeing something like this. So the sooner we get these people from Dorset Council here in this town hall, the better, because they've got some answering to do, because this is really getting out of control.
John?
Can I have a bit of information? If they want to change this deed, so there's not for 3 months they can sell it at the highest bid. What is the current situation? Do they apply to keep them on the books indefinitely?
I haven't read through the whole thing, John, so I can't answer that, but one would deduce rather from the fact that they have put forward this amendment that, you know.
As I understand it, the planning permission was for a block of houses, which a certain portion are affordable. They will remain affordable and therefore require to be let out whatever it is through the housing association until and unless there is a variation of that. So what they're asking is to basically bin the affordable houses now, 3 months' time, put them on the open market. It's just in time for the March date when everything picks up. Surprise, surprise. I agree with Karen, it's smelly.
Good. It's smelly. Let's vote on that. No, just kidding. Sorry. Good. So we are voting on Andy's proposal. Yep. All those in favour?
Thank you very much.
Have we got enough grounds provided?
The only thing that I would suggest, Chair, is that in the past, when you've refused ones like this, you've asked for it to go to committee. You may not wish to, but it's something you've done in the past.
Oh, good. Well, let's ask for it to go to committee then.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, 5.2.2. Liddell want to put another illuminated fascia sign, this time right in the bottom corner, which is next to Tesco's, face out straight over Tesco's car park. I think we can see what's going on here, everybody. Andy.
I'd like to propose we object to this on the grounds that it is overbearing, light pollution, and it will impact on the residents of the home and also people living down Christie's Lane as well. There is no need for it. It's just an offensive large plastic illuminated sign.
And they already have two.
And they already have two as well.
Good. Well, I second that.
Okay.
Oh, here's, I'm so sorry.
John's
Oh, no, John.
I'd just like to clarify that it is on the side facing the car park, so it's not going to advertise to anybody.
It's going to advertise to everyone parking to go into Tesco's. That's the point.
Yes, so if they wanted it facing. You have these reasons, you don't need things like that.
Right. Yes.
I know I'm a guest at your committee this evening.
However,
I would like to, and I know I'm onto a losing wicket, I'd like to suggest that you guys support it to encourage as many people as possible to shop where they feel it most suits their needs, and to make people who may not necessarily be aware that Lidl's there aware of it. And also, you know, Tesco's are being petty. I see no reason why we shouldn't support Lidl in doing the same. At least they're trying to support the hard-working people of Sharpsbury.
thank you for sharing, Piers.
Yes, so I'd encourage you to support it.
All those in
Councillor
favour of
Tibbins wanted to
objecting. Oh, I'm so sorry. Sorry.
I was just going to make a comment.
Yeah.
The comment is in relation to Lidl in addition to the trees, and it is a planning application. There was supposed to be a painting a mural going right across the building.
Mm.
And my understanding is that it was supposed to be done by a local artist, and it was supposed to be done before the opening. And that was, so the planning enforcement officer needs to be involved, because they haven't followed the ruling. So can we actually engage the planning, as a committee, the planning enforcement officer?
Yeah.
Under the planning obligations of Liberals, it actually specifies all of this. And this is what the planning enforcement officer needs to know. You go in under Dorset Council, you can actually enter it in, because it's good to enter it in as a council.
Okay, good point, well made. So Claire, can you?
Excuse me, I just wanted to say something.
Jan, yes.
I was only going to say that as you go into the car park in Tesco, you are far more aware of the little building than you are of the Tesco building. So I wouldn't have thought they need anything additional.
Yes. Good point. Oh, what's that building? No idea. Yeah. What a shame there isn't a sign there. Okay, so Andy proposed that we object. Yep. Let's take a vote. All those in favour of the objection?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Now, we have 5.2.3 and 5.2.4. One is a planning application.
Okay, so
one is listed building consent. Yeah.
Chair, just to update members, so this application came in after the agenda was issued. The way the agenda is worded does allow the committee to take late applications. This one expires before the end of this month. So this is for the Chantry at St James Street. So if you would like to take it this evening, it would be my recommendation that you do, even though normally it would be better to have delayed it. But that's up to you, because it has not been on the published agenda. It's
Okay.
a late edition.
Okay, I understand. I understand all that. I am perfectly happy to discuss it. I've looked at it. I trust other people have as well. I do have some information about this, simply because obviously I live in this area. So this house,
Let me just get the right, sorry,
if you,
out of sync.
okay,
Just give me a moment. So, the Chantry, here we go. I'm just going to click through it. I think that's going to be quicker.
if you want to go back a bit, Claire.
Oh,
Hello.
hello. Right, let's go again. This is not going so well. Right. From current slide. Right, that one's that one. It's because I'm doing it simultaneously on Teams for the people that are dialing in. It's causing me a few technical complications. Okay, so that's got what you need. Do you want the next one on?
Yes, please. Okay, and the next one. Okay, if we just stop there for a moment, just so people can see. So if you look in the bottom right-hand corner here, this is the main house, and then that there is the annex.
If you want a red,
Oh, what are you doing?
little, the red one at the top should give you an infrared, or is it not working?
Not working. Anyway, not to worry, everyone. So until the new owners bought this house, in the last few years, it's been used as a house and an Airbnb. So in essence, what the new owners want to do is return it to one single house. And from the look of the existing and proposed ground floor, the floor plans, they're going to take out, so in the annex to the right there, they're going to take out this stairwell that allows you to get from the ground floor to the bedrooms above, so that you can only access those bedrooms from the main staircase to the entire building. I just wanted to flag that up because that seems to me quite a good thing, and I'm personally quite in favour of it, because obviously there's an Airbnb opposite that, and we have commented on in this committee before about the considerable number of Airbnbs in St James Street. So a reduction would be a good thing, and I think also it's sort of good for the house for it to be returned to a more you know, how it was intended. And they are reinstating some original doorways and so forth, and they're upgrading the conservatory. The sheds in the driveway look a bit like stable blocks, so they're updating those. There we go. I don't see any need to object. So I would vote no objection, and anyway, it will be decided by listed building consent because, you know, it's design and conservation rather, because it's listed building in a conservation area. So I would propose no objection.
Can I just make a comment before you vote on it? I've got no objection to what's going on inside the house. I've got one or two reservations about the outside changes. I would say that
Go forwards.
that's good enough at the moment.
Okay.
Look at the plan. The conservatory at the back, they're proposing sort of something that's fairly ultra modern to replace the heavy wooden joinery.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether that's a synthetic. It's obviously not of the same era, whether we consider that. I don't know.
Planning don't consider that important, really. Current planning thought processes are that they prefer something that is distinct from the original architecture so that you can clearly see the progression of the house through the ages. That's why, certainly in North Dorset, they're not keen on extensions and alterations, external alterations that are identical to the original house, unless it were, you know, a Grade 2-star house or something like that.
But that's why you've got some terrible extensions.
Well, happily, no one's going to see that, John, but, you know, yeah.
But I was not sensitive to that.
Sure.
The other question is that the garage is right on the boundary.
Can we? Okay, so can we just have a look at that?
Questioning whether it's going to take lights.
So next one.
When you look at the plan view,
Next one.
you
So,
need a
garage, okay. So, don't know, is there one after this, or do we go back to?
So it's probably the block layout.
Right.
That shows the whole garden.
Okay, we might need to go back to the beginning of that case now.
They have a huge garden, 102 next door. It's a thin strip of garden. And you're going to have a garage, or some building over their fence.
Right, okay. Before this, I think the lot plan was the first one, before this one. Before this one.
Location.
Stop. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that garage is like.
Okay, I see what you mean.
And it's going to take some sort of late evening sunshine away from the bit. But when you look at the size of the garden, it's a pity it has to be there.
Yes. Yes, they're moving the garage away from.
Reservations about that. I mean, it's on the drive, but the drive isn't.
Yes.
But it's not there. And there was 102.
Okay, well, that's a very good point. And we have objected to things before, particularly in Raspberry Lane, where that has been the case. So I think in the interest of consistency, can we split our, how can we handle sort of no comment on the internal alterations, but?
You comment on the application as a whole, so you would need to first of all weigh up whether the no comment on the internal outweighs the objection or support for the external. So once you've weighted that, then you've got your overall, and then you can add your comments in to support that.
Does anybody else on the committee agree with you to start?
Right, okay. So Karen, do you have a view?
I don't. I was actually just going to support it because I agree with you. I think that it's moving the Airbnb and turning it to a dwelling. So I would always encourage that.
Okay, Andy?
I'm content with the application as it stands.
Okay. So can we?
So you have already proposed no objection. So if you're sticking that still on the table, then you need a seconder and you can move to the vote.
Okay. Seconded by Karen. Can we get to the vote? All those in favour? Objections? John's objecting.
Thank you.
And can we, so we've approved that. How, and can we add in comments? Did you?
Yes, you can add in comments.
Okay, so could we add a comment that we are not comfortable with the siting of the proposed garage so close to the adjoining neighbour?
The neighbour. Yes.
Yeah. So at least we've gone some way to, at least noting that we've seen that. Right, okay. Next.
Planning appeals. Okay, just let me get to the right place on. Yeah.
6.2.1.
Okay. It's not playing ball with me. Hold on. Thank you. That one's there. Okay. Over to you, Chair.
Okay. So, yes. Develop land by the erection of up to 135 dwellings, industrial starter units, primary school, flexible commercial uses, including a combination of a hotel, non-food retail or residential care home, modified vehicular access, form car parking, sports pitches, public open space and associated works, land south of the A30 and east of Sharpsbury Salisbury Road. So, as we all know, this is land that was part of the major town plan, the master plan for the development of the east of Shaftesbury, and has always, in spite of all Persimmon's attempts in recent years, still been allocated employment land. We don't have anywhere else for employment land. All our oh Lord. Oh, just the brain's gone. I'm so sorry, everybody. Our commercial industrial areas are absolutely full to capacity, as David has already said earlier. He's had extensive experience. You only need to look at the number of interested parties who have contacted William Wallace over the years to investigate whether or not they can gain access to this site and use it for the purposes it was intended, and have been fobbed off by Persimmon on various grounds, mainly that Persimmon will not. Persimmon only want people to take on the whole site. They won't allow it. They won't sell bits of it, which is what is normal in terms of commercial development land. So for those of you who drive up the A303, you may be familiar with the Sunrise Business Park on the A303. So that has been developed bit by bit over the years, and generally speaking, that's how it's done. You put in the services, you put in the roads, and people and build it, and they will come. So, and that's worked very well there. That's how it's done. Persimmon would have known that when they bought it. They've only ever eyed it up, in my personal opinion, in order to be able to build houses on it. So we objected last time. Various other people have objected. Where are we now with this? And it's going to be debated, isn't it?
So this goes to a planning appeal hearing
on the next Tuesday.
So the purpose today is to decide whether or not you wish to attend that hearing and just observe it, whether you wish to participate, and if so, whoever does attend and participate would need a mandate from this committee on what their remit was.
Right, okay. Super, so Karen.
Right. I mean, a councillor can attend as an individual, not necessarily by this committee. Right, what I wanted to say, it's not my money is on Persimmon's, right? I don't bet, but my money, if you look at probabilities, I would actually say there's a distinct high probability that this the inspector is actually going to approve it. I think it's been on the cards for years that this would be approved, or since the Simmons put this proposal out. I think that we as a council have missed a major bargaining tool, because if you look at where this development is, it's within the settlement boundary. It's also now going to be categorised as infill, because you've actually got, I can't remember the proper wording to use, but it's known as Tizard land, 55 houses, and so it's the fact that it's requesting part house and part employment, but varying on the employment, will become quite an attractive proposition. So I believe that this is actually going to be accepted. I think that this council should have negotiated or played the card that things should be built on greenfield. So, example, Enmore Court, they should, and also I actually think Little Down should have been beaten on the grounds that this had a very high probability of being built on, because as you know, Little Down is on the AOMB. So what's actually happening around Sharpsbury is prime sites are being built on, and yet this site here, this town council and the neighbourhood plan is actually saying, oh no, don't build houses on it. I think that, and it's not necessarily what I believe as an opinion, but my probability, looking at my probability of what will happen, is that this will get accepted. And the reason why the probability has gone right up is if you actually look in the BVN, November 26th, the inspector again, it was for 114 dwellings in Stallbridge and for 2,000 square metres of employment space, and it was granted. So what's the downside of this? Well, the downside of this being accepted is that Dorset Council, I might be wrong, could be financially liable for this as well, because they were sent lots of emails from Persimmons saying that this plan needed to be reviewed, and they didn't. And so I think as a taxpayer, we're going to also have financial, we're all going to be covered. I think it's sort of like, can be tens of thousands of pounds or potentially charged.
But
So
for what?
Persimmons could turn around and charge Dorset Council for not pursuing the application. The reason why it's gone to the inspector is because, I mean, don't you know this?
Yes, I do, but I don't understand your comment about being charged tens of thousands
because
of
someone
pounds.
will have to pay for the inspector.
Yeah, well, that's
And it will be
why.
Dorset Council.
Okay.
And so it'll be the council taxpayer will pay.
Yes, but I mean, we already know this, because obviously, you know, we've already written to Dorset Council saying virtually everything that's coming to you is going to appeal. So we're already on it in terms of that, and saying, you know, what is going on here? You know.
My point is, Virginia, is that we all sit around these committees and we all go, oh no, and it's sort of like, we think this, we think that. But at the end of the day, if you look at the land mass, it actually had planning application approval in 2011. It was already a development site in 2011. It was bought by Persimmons, I think, round about 2004. So, and they bought the whole, there were a group of them, and they bought the whole strip. So the fact that it had planning application approval in 2007, it was already going to be built on. And so we should have been using this to negotiate, to actually say the probability that houses are going to be on that site, 135, we should have said, well, actually, there's a high probability that that's going to be approved. Don't do Enmore Court, don't do Littledown, because this is infill, this is brownfield. Because this is brownfield.
Yeah, but the thing is, Karen, that just trying to bash the council over the head with what it did or didn't do, in your opinion, 7 whatever plus years ago, is not what we're discussing tonight. Because even if that were true, that moment has been and gone. We need to discuss how we want to respond to this now. Now, if we take your point, what we're saying is that we don't care about employment land. What the hell? If they're generous enough to give us a few hundred square meters of industrial units, well, lucky us, and we'll just suck it up. Is that the attitude we're going to take? Because we've never taken that attitude. That's why we have never said this is land allocated for affordable housing. That's why you can't build elsewhere, because this land has never been, and it was part of the master plan, and surely you must know this, Karen, part of the master plan for the Maltings, that this would be employment land. Why on earth would we sacrifice employment land to call it land for affordable housing? Because that is the only basis on which other things wouldn't have been built. We don't have brownfield sites in Sharpsbury. This land was specifically for employment land. Piers.
Could I suggest that we definitely send somebody as a representative of the council? We can go through the myriad of reasons as to, and I'm going to tailor words to a council meeting, but to tell Persimmon to go suck eggs. The fact that they, to be honest, they can't build a house to save their life, they don't know what customer services, their business practices are just abhorrent, etc., etc. But the fundamental point here, and their whole argument, and when they sat downstairs and they first proposed this to the council 2 or 3 years ago, I don't know who put, the poor chap pulled the shortest straw and was sent out to that in the office, is they're going to argue there is not a demand for it. So if we want an argument to stick, this is a semi-quasi judicial process. This isn't about what's morally right or wrong, it's about what's right and wrong within the letter of the law. We need to prove there is a demand for business units. Now, first of all, it's absolutely fantastic that Persimmon admit that there is a need for a hotel, care home, and some business units. Fantastic. I do smell them trying to do exactly the same thing as they did before. They're going to promise a load of stuff on the end, and they're going to change their mind once they've made some money and they see an opportunity to make some more.
Yes.
The fact that we have, Persimmon repeatedly, promised they said we're going to build a school, despite the fact that there was never a request. So we need to go and prove there is a demand for business. We've heard it from the Parish Council that there is. We all know that there is. I think the Chamber, the Chair of the Chamber, is really useful in getting some analytical data to present. And I do think we do need to point out that, they talk about they've never received a single inquiry. The guy said that sitting downstairs, at which point Councillor Proctor did point out that he pushed an inquiry in just to see what would happen with his development company. So not as if it's like me walking in through the door going, yeah, I'll have to that. To which they were told they weren't accepting offers. So we know it's complete and utter bull experiment.
Yes.
So we just need to go out there and prove it. And I think that, we need to put up the best fight we can.
Yeah.
And we can prove that because there's a colossal demand for business units of every shape and sort that there is. But more importantly, the reasons we need to do it is to build sustainable communities. And that is Dorset Council's priority, and that is central government's priority. In the same way they're trying to tackle climate changes, there is nothing eco-friendly about making people drive all the way to Bournemouth to go to work.
Yes.
We want to provide jobs for them here. Sharpsbury is a fantastic place to base your business. And we know that because they're all based here. We need more room to base more of them here, to provide more jobs, to provide for all of the people who have moved to Sharpsbury and decided to make it their home, which is fantastic. They need somewhere to work. So, I get as animated as you, but, I think that's really the key sort of next steps. And,
Thank you.
I don't know, who the committee thinks best to send it. I think you would be fantastic.
Oh.
Sharpsbury and Council.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you, Pierre. Sadly, I've got back-to-back client meetings that day and in London, so that is extremely irritating. Otherwise, I would have very much liked to. Phil has said that he is available, so I'm hoping that we can dispatch Councillor Proctor. I mean, yes, and I am. We've got to get everything in by the 14th. And so I
wanted to speak to.
Yes, absolutely. So I mean, the Chamber of Commerce, we've kind of dusted off what various things we've sent in before and looked at what everyone else has sent in. I mean, there have been some very good submissions on this subject. Andy.
Yes, thank you. So just picking up on Pierce's point about employment land, I think the neighbourhood plan identified about 1 million square feet of employment land needed, if I'm right. And from therefore we need if we've agreed it's 1 million square feet of employment land, but that's been evidenced in the neighbourhood plan, then we're halfway there. The apart from this area, the only other alternative places, well, one of them was Bell Street Co-op, which is now gone. There isn't anybody. The glove factory was 5,000 feet or something. And I think this application, if it goes ahead in its present form, would only release 20,000 square feet of employment land. And it is a fact that we need to develop employment opportunities for people living in Sharpsbury. More homes, a school that Dorset can't afford to staff, and more pressure on the medical services is not the way forward. There is simply no other option within the Sharpsbury environs for decent employment land. So I think we have the evidence. I think we just need to go and make the case.
Yeah.
And it's in our neighbourhood plan. It's been evidenced right from the beginning, and there is no argument. The only people arguing against it are Simmons, and a few people who support their application, but that's fine. I think most people are opposed to it. I am completely opposed to it. This needs to be kept for employment land, and it would help if we could trust the Simmons, but I think from what we've witnessed in the past, we can't.
Karen.
I'm not too sure where the idea of the no requirement for a two-form school has come from, because it was going to be on Tizard's land. And I think that Tizard beat Dorset Education Department and it undercut them. So there was going to be a two-form school there. And the fact that the Simmons are more, they don't just sort of like come up with these plans. They would have done it with, in conjunction with Dorset Ed. And I can't see why people are saying that there isn't a requirement for the schools. I'm sure that you've actually looked at the playing areas. Sports England have written a statement saying that this is really excellent what they're proposing. So my understanding is that the employment that they're estimating is around about 400. So the mixture and the people and the care homes, they're stating that there's a care home organisation that have said that they will build on there. So again, I just don't understand why councillors are saying there isn't a requirement for a two-form primary school in this town, because
I can answer that. I can answer that actually, because Dorset Council have informed us in the process of doing the neighbourhood plan when we asked them, and they said that they have no money and no intention of there being another school in Sharpsbury at this time, and that was in conjunction with asking the schools that we do have what spare capacity they had and whether or not they would be in a position to provide for children with new families coming in to fill the various estates that were being built. And all the schools confirmed that they would have capacity.
But I can't, no, this is predicting what's actually happening, years ahead. So you've actually got Barrett's coming online, you've got the Little Down, area. So I cannot see how there isn't a requirement for a two-form school. But it will be very, very interesting next week to see I thought it went on for the 3 days this, it's not just a one-day thing. I thought it was more than one.
I don't know, to be honest with you. Claire, have you got any idea what the format is?
The information I've got is the appeal start date is the 14th of December. I hadn't picked up on it being longer than 1 day, but I wasn't looking for it, so
Could we check? Could we find out? Yes.
Yeah.
And then particularly so that we can double check, because, you know, if the point at which us as the local town council are invited to speak, that might be on a different day, in which case that would make it available to other people.
Yep, I will find out.
That'd be great. Thank you. So, and in terms of leisure facilities, I mean, obviously now that we have Coombe House, St Mary's as was, that will open up all kinds of leisure opportunities. So I can't imagine that Dorset would support it based on leisure things, because they don't have the money for that either. So, you know, I mean, certainly care homes. I mean, if you look at the care home on the corner of the Orchard Park roundabout in Gillingham, you know, that is an industrial area, and there's a care home on there. I mean, you know, if people want to build a care home and, you know, provide employment for people, fantastic. It is all about employment after all.
My personal assessment is that you're saying that the Chamber of Commerce are going to come up with an argument for retaining that as employment land by next week.
But it's always maintained that it should be employment land.
I looked at the planning portal. I couldn't see anything that substantiated anything from the Chamber of Commerce.
Well, I don't know. I wasn't on the Chamber of Commerce.
What facts and figures are you going to be coming up with by next week in front of this? I mean, this is going to be a very high-profile meeting.
So,
where are these facts and figures? You're saying that you're going to be, or this is going to be the town council. No one can go representing the town council unless we vote here
yes,
on what's being said. And you're not telling me, you're saying that the Chamber of Commerce has got all of these stats.
no, I didn't say that.
Well, okay, here's round it. What's going to be said by this town council?
What's it going to do? You're conflating several things here all together, Karen. Whatever the Chamber of Commerce decides to submit is what the Chamber of Commerce decides to submit, and has nothing whatsoever to do with the town council, or what the town council might.
With what Councillor Brown was suggesting, that you come up with various figures by next week. So he was talking about that was a Chamber of Commerce meeting, was it?
What meeting? I don't know. I don't quite understand where we're going with this. The Chamber of Commerce as a consultee. Well, I don't know actually that we're formal consultees, but I think David Perry, when he was chair of the Chamber of Commerce, he put in an objection on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, and he has been asked if he would like to comment again on this particular appraisal. So through him, we will be putting through an additional comment based on the previous comment we made. However, we're not here to discuss what the Chamber of Commerce will or will not do.
Right. If you read what the inspector has stated, because you either go in as you either go under the virtual meeting or you go in attendance. If you're actually going to go there, you actually have to say something over and above what has already been stated in the submission. So the town council has said X. So you're sort of saying, councillor, you're saying in his absence, you're going to say Councillor Proctor's going to go there. What's he going to say? Because whatever he says, we have to know, and we all have to vote on it. So what's going to be?
Okay, well, what do we think he should say? Because I object, so I object. I think Andy objects.
Just on that point.
Yeah.
The submissions, date was up to the 15th of November. That date's gone.
Yeah.
But we have we have made a submission. I think Bree sent it in. That's sort of quite a detailed.
Yeah, I
submission.
read it was very
So
good
that-
submission, yeah.
My understanding is if we sent a representative, they could only actually table and discuss that representation that had already been said. I don't think they can introduce anything new into
Right.
it. Or-
It's actually written on the paper, and they're saying that the inspector has taken every submission into account, and you can either state a statement or a question, but it needs to be over and above what's all, because he's already got, and you have to give that to the inspector prior to the meeting.
And that is the purpose of it being on the agenda today. So this committee, as a delegation of the corporate body, can decide if there is anything additionally that it wishes to make to that planning appeal hearing.
And if you want to pose a statement or a question. And so that goes to the case officer, and they then review whether you're going to be allowed to speak. So it's not cast in stone that you're going to be allowed, or Councillor Proctor is going to be allowed to speak. So that's what you need to determine. Not go back over what you've already agreed. What sort of question?
I think, looking at the submissions that have gone in, particularly the one Bruce said, it's very comprehensive. I mean, the only additional information would be a question, whether it would be a question would be allowed, would be a question to Persimmon, which is how many requests did they have made to them, formally or informally, about decontaminating the lands? Because my understanding is
that has been the sticking point.
They stonewalled this over the last few years, which has led to the point where it hasn't been taken on because of the issue around decontamination. Now, whether that's a question that could be asked, I don't know.
So can
Certainly
you?
worth a punt.
Well, it is worth a punt, and it's probably worth, because that has been the sticking point based on William Wallace's submission on this appeal. They listed all the people that had applied for information, and when they applied for it, whether they wanted a parcel of land and how much, whether they wanted to take on the whole thing. And they did say that, nobody was prepared to take on the land without it. The presumption was that it would be decontaminated prior to them taking possession, prior to them taking possession of the land. So I think that is a valid question, because that is the main sticking point.
So we seem to be, we're prepared to recommend someone attend to ask that question. Is that what the
Yep.
Yeah, and that's basically it, isn't it? So we don't need to object or otherwise, do we, on this stage?
No, that's already been done. This is purely about whether you attend and participate or just dial in virtually or not at all is your third option.
Okay, that's a bit tricky to answer because firstly, Karen is suggesting that possibly it goes over several days. So whilst Councillor Proctor was available for Tuesday, it could be that the opportunity for the town council to speak might not be till Wednesday or Thursday, if indeed it does go over, several days. And so we don't know people's availability because we don't know quite exactly when this will occur. How do we handle that?
First and foremost, if this committee wishes to be represented, then that is the first resolution along with the question that will be asked.
Yeah.
Secondly, then will be the matter of who goes and does that. So I would suggest that in that instance, the committee identifies a first and second preference, but in the event that those two can't go because of the date and time issue, that you leave it to me to try and find another councillor that can, starting with the committee members and then outward from that other councillors.
Yes.
But that would be your decision as a committee to make, but that would then be a lawful decision.
Okay.
It's 2 days, it's listed for 2 days. Apparently,
Okay.
Well done.
14th and 15th.
And does it give any more information than that?
No,
Okay, so one or the other, fine. Well, I mean, I'm tied up with work next week. I've got a hell of a week, so I'm not available either of those 2 days.
Councillor Proctor's already indicated,
Yeah.
so that's just nominated for both days then.
Okay, do you want to
He's not here this
put
evening.
There's the old adage about volunteering, isn't there?
George it is.
Right. Don't throw bombs like that into the meeting.
Okay.
Please. Right,
so you, as a committee, you wish to
so we are
nominate?
nominating Councillor Proctor
Yep,
to ask a question of the hearing.
okay. The question I have noted is, how many requests has Persimmon received, either formal or informal, regarding the decontaminating of the land? Is that
Yes.
the phrase?
Yeah,
Yeah, but how many requests has Persimmon had? How many offers has Persimmon, or is it how many
how
offers?
many requests has Persimmon had from prospective buyers, formally or informally, regarding the decontamination of the land? It's quite an open question. Well, we need to vote on it. It's only a proposal from me.
Yeah,
I haven't
yeah.
know if you got a second with it, so.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to second it because I just feel that that at least we are seen to be there and to be making the effort and to be asking questions. So I'm prepared to second that. I'll second that. John, do you want to say anything?
You may well be able to volunteer to be there and we're going to spend it Phil Towns.
Ah, excellent. Okay. Thank you, John. So should we go to the vote? Ready to go to the vote? So, all those in favour of Andy's motion? All those against? Right, oh Lord, right, we've got to crack on, everyone, because right, okay, so now we have ATS. So this is going to appeal, has been made to the Secretary of State against refusal by Dorset Council. The appeal will be determined on the basis of written representations. So, in truth, I don't really think there's anything we can usefully say about this because we objected. Dorset Council have turned it down. There's nothing about it that has changed. There's nothing new we can add about it. They have made no amendments. Therefore, there is nothing to add up to our objection. Anyone like to say anything? Karen?
Yes, we have actually stated that, again, this comes into the whole area of building houses and there is no affordable housing, 24. So this then is an affordable housing contribution. So what's happening with all of these houses that are getting built? What's happening to the money? Where are these affordable housing contributions going? So you've got affordable housing contributions that were paid by Churchill, they were paid by the Blue Cedar dwelling. You've got this one, and it's already over, I think it's around about £500,000. And the only area within Sharpsbury that I know affordable housing contributions have actually been given to an area within Sharpsbury is Chubb Housing, and I think it was 200,000. And I don't know how many affordable houses that they built. So there's a massive lack of stats, communication, what is happening with the money. So they're building this is a brownfield site, 24 houses, not one affordable housing. They should be jumping up and down. Why isn't this all affordable housing? If they're saying it is so critical within Sharpsbury that for affordable housing, why isn't a whole lot affordable housing? Why are we accepting affordable housing contributions where we don't know where the money's going? So I think that there needs to be a question on that. What is the affordable housing contribution? Why is it affordable housing contribution? Why aren't all of the 24 houses mandated to be affordable housing? Because it's brownfield, it's within the centre of Sharpsbury, and Dorset Council have actually stated that there is a dire need for affordable housing. That's the proposition.
Okay.
We didn't bring out the affordable housing. I think that is the most there's many scandalous things about this planning application, not least the fact that it's been an eyesore within this town for years. And I think that there needs to be some sort of compensation to this town for the fact that it's been an eyesore.
Well, there's nothing we can do about that, Karen, because there are towns up and down the country that have to put up with this the same as we do. I mean, yes, it's an eyesore, but, you know, good Lord, if we can't get Section 106 money when we should be getting it, we're not going to get compensation for it being an eyesore. And that's not really what we're discussing now. I mean, I take your point and you're absolutely right, of course, it has been appalling, but, you know, the land is owned by a developer. And it is egregious to all of us that it can just sit there and nothing happens to it for year after year after year. But we are not here to discuss that. So the yeah, I don't really know what more to say about this. You know, written representations, we've already objected.
Yeah, just a side point. It was raised in public consultation about concerns about groundwater sewage discharge down.
Yes.
That was answered in detail by Councillor Proctor,
Yeah.
using his architectural head.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day when we first responded to this.
Yeah.
And it did cover those points off, and there were some serious issues about how the sewer is managed down there. And what was proposed within the plan was insufficient, and we've raised that already.
Okay. Do we want to write to them and say that we would just request the inspector pays particular attention to our objections, both of the plan of 2021 and the plan of 2019? And by Julian, because, yeah, that the inspector revisits in detail the objections raised.
Yeah, because I'm not sure that we've had any further information. In fact, I'm not sure. We have not had any further information provided to us by the applicant about how they're going to manage sewage and wastewater.
And indeed, that was part of our objection in August. Actually, was that there wasn't sufficient information provided. Yeah.
Why can't we say then? Because it just says no affordable housing. Why can't we expand on that and say that it should be all affordable housing? And why can't we say with renewable energy technologies? Because we didn't say it beforehand, and we need to stop really mandating that it should be for all affordable housing, and they should actually have renewable energy.
Just going to check that wasn't in, because this is the more recent comments that the council put forward. I'm just checking. That was the more succinct version for the minutes. So I was just checking we haven't covered that off in a more recent submission. That's possible, Chair, if you wish to do that.
Okay. I suppose I'm only hesitating because whilst it's not that I disagree with you, I just think it just, you know, all of a sudden out of nowhere, we're asking for quite a huge thing. We're asking for this to be affordable housing, which is, and entirely, which is not something that this particular house builder does. Is it practical? I don't know, is it practical? Isn't it just pie in the sky to ask this at this stage? Is the planning inspector, you know, he is going to be deciding on whether or not this application should go through because Dorset Council have refused it. Is he going to determine that it can only go through if it's affordable homes with solar panels?
Who knows? There was two things: you either make a statement or ask questions. It's a pertinent question because we are building on brownfield sites where there are no affordable housing, and yet we've got an officer sat in Dorset Council who's actually saying all of these houses are going to be built in Enmore Court because there's a desperate need for affordable housing. So this is brownfield, and why can't we just ask the question?
Well, I suppose it might be possible, see written representation, that we could say, in the light of the planning inspector's decision to.
Where does it tell me where the affordable housing contributions are?
Well,
if you can't
if you're not going to have affordable housing, then possibly there are, you know, the contributions.
Well,
I don't know, Karen. We can't. I mean, it's already 10 to 9. We have got to crack on, and we haven't discussed Thursday market.
The difficulty I feel is if we go to the inspector and say, well, actually, we'd be happy with affordable housing, subject to whatever.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a reverse ferret because we've said we're not happy with the plans as they are. So, you know, by just changing it to affordable housing doesn't resolve the problem, because the problem is the plans and all the things that are associated with the plans in terms of impact on residents, road access, sewage, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So all that still exists, whether it's an affordable home or not. The plan as it stands is unacceptable. And and I don't think there's anything else we can say other than to stick to our original argument. If it should come back before us with a fresh application, if it should lose the appeal, then I think we can then look more closely at the whole question of affordable housing and how that's.
In light of the decision at Enmore Court, I mean, I think that has changed our view on, you know.
But you have to go back as to why this was originally approved. It was originally approved because wasn't it supposed to be elderly housing? It was supposed to be. It was approved on the basis that there was a benefit to this community.
It's going to be old people's home, not
yes. So they've lost it. They've lost the thread of the benefit to this community. We've actually got to remind the inspector that that was the basis that this was approved. That I can't remember the exact term, but wasn't it Renaissance?
Yes, it was initially,
It was Renaissance, and it was going to be, I don't know, what do? They sort of like, you have to be, be over a certain age, etc. So it was seen that this was what was needed. And now they've actually removed the socio-economic need.
Yeah, but we do have that up there. We have said lack of affordable housing, lack of Section 106 heads of terms. I mean, we have already pointed this out.
I don't think it's very common in asking the question why affordable housing has been dismissed, given that they now seem to think there's such an enormous need for it. It must should be a dozen questions.
Yeah, okay, I mean, so written representations, again, this is they want representations by the 14th, don't they? So
you could say on the basis that this planning application was granted to Renaissance I can't remember the exact term, was it? It wouldn't have been.
It wasn't sheltered accommodation. Was it sheltered accommodation or?
I can't remember the term.
I can always look that up if you need that.
Yeah.
I can.
Because it's the same as, so it was on the basis of X.
Yeah.
But this planning application should be bringing to this town the same community benefit. And we believe that that is all affordable housing. Because they've increased the number as well. It was going to be 80 and it was going to be for elderly occupation. And they bumped it up to 22 and removed no affordable housing. So something's been lost in the whole multiple selling effect, so just bringing it back.
Yeah, I just had a feeling though that there was some affordable housing. There were flats. Are there not flats in this? Where there was some affordable?
No,
Really?
it was going to be, it was,
Do that for your benefit. This is the response in terms of proposed plan does not include any affordable housing.
Right, okay.
so it's, right, okay, so
yeah.
it's fundamentally against our neighbourhood planning policy.
Chair, I think, I'm not sure if we're able to take this any further, and there's been a good debate on it. It's now 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
I propose, in the standing orders, that we move to the next business.
Okay, so can I just say, let's quickly wrap this up then, because I think we're in a position to wrap this up. Okay, so we're going to write and we're going to ask that the inspector refreshes his, closely looks at all our objections from the 2019 and the 2021 application on this site, that given recent deliberations by planning inspectors on the acute need for affordable housing in Sharpsbury, this brings into even sharper focus the lack of affordable housing on this key town centre brownfield site.
Especially as it was initially granted as a, whatever small.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
I've got that as well.
Fill in the blank there, yes.
I'll fill in the blanks.
Community need build.
Okay, so the proposal is that we continue our objection and we also submit a written representation as just dictated.
Yes.
Do I have a seconder? Karen? Let's go to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Thursday market. So, so a little overview. As soon as we could last year, we reopened the market when people are allowed to go outside to go shopping. And this was when we had the temporary traffic regulation order brought into COVID. People really enjoyed it.
Do we need to vote to extend the meeting?
We're okay for
Oh,
the
sorry.
moment because public consultation went on until 25 past. So if you can wrap it up for
Right,
25
okay,
past, you're okay.
okay. So basically, hopefully, or certainly all councillors would have read the summary. I hope members of the public did too. So recommendations are, there are two recommendations. One is to terminate the road closure licence. The current one expires at the end of December and revert back to the pre-COVID market experience, saving the weekly marshal cost. And both of these options are delegated to the town clerk, all details in discharging the AIM decision. So option 2, continue with the road closure licence until the terms outlined in the Dorset Council instruction with a marshal stationed at the entry point and cost to be drawn from budget line 4007. Now, the reason why we have got a street market with a road traffic management system on a Thursday is because people love the market so much when there was temporary pedestrianisation, or pedestrian priority to be more accurate, that the market stalls increased, the people increased. We had, I think, 6 new market stalls turned up, and the whole thing had really blossomed. So given how much people enjoyed it, the plan was, as a public amenity, to enable people to enjoy it. Now, I know people will talk about blue badge holders. For every blue badge holder, I would suggest you can't access the high street on a Thursday morning. There are disabled people in motorised vehicles who are able to access because there isn't so much traffic. On last Thursday, I watched 3 young mums pushing trams up the high street with a toddler on a hand, and that wouldn't be possible normally, because at least when you have the road traffic management system, the traffic is one way. They are instructed by the marshal that they are to proceed down the high street at 5 miles an hour with their hazard lights on. Now, admittedly, not all of them do this, but the thing is, having people in the road shoved off the pavements is just Sharpsbury on a normal day. So any kind of reduction in traffic is a benefit. I would move for option 2 to renew the licence for a year with a review after 6 months. Would anybody like to comment? Yes.
Could I encourage the committee to support the proposal? And if anyone wants some facts and figures, I've just done some maths and possibly go wrong. 84% of respondents to our last public feedback form said that they felt that the weekly Thursday market experience was either excellent or good. And you're incredibly right, Virginia, in that, you know, the high street, people have to walk in the pavements on the best time. So at least by reducing that traffic, we make people safer. Copies of the report from Dorset Council have been shared with us. I don't agree with the conclusions within that. And I think that as a council, as a community, we can be very proud in our business-like approach to the market and the high street over the last 2 years. And that's a phrase that councils like to throw around a lot. And it's one that they regularly misunderstand. We have been business-like in our ruthless focus on the customer and the customer's demands and needs. That's what businesses have to do, and that's what a council trying to support businesses should have to do. Our businesses' customers are telling us they prefer high street with pedestrian priority. And I think we should do everything we can to hang on to them with our fingernails.
Thank you, Piers. Yes. I know lots of people from outlying villages who have said to me and emailed me saying that they have started shopping in Sharpsbury High Street again because they felt safer.
Oh, I've just had a text message that says that for the budget, it's £50,000 a year.
Okay, so and I would say on the subject of the money that it is the business of the town council to spend town council funds appropriately for the benefit of the community, and I feel that this is a benefit to the community. Karen.
Yeah, completely disagree with both of you. The health and safety report quite clearly stated that you should not mix traffic and people.
Sorry, I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing at their report.
Why?
Because we mix traffic and people every day. That's a normal day on this high street. I mean, if that isn't an argument for pedestrianisation, I don't know what is. But anyway, I'm so sorry, Karen, I've interrupted you.
So Dorset Council commissioned a specialist to write a report which recommended that, they stated quite clearly that there should not be people walking on in the road with delivery vans and buses, and there should not be cafes, tables and chairs out on the front. I personally cannot see, and I've written to Dorset Council about this, I cannot see on what grounds they even signed off the temporary TRO.
Yeah, but we're not discussing that, and we're not discussing that now. We're discussing extending it.
Do you think I don't know what we're discussing? You're interrupting me all of the time.
Well, yeah, but I'd say quite a lot. You get distracted and then you get carried away. So sometimes you're absolutely right. I don't think you know what you're talking about because you lose track of it.
What? You're incredibly incredibly rude.
That's if you say that all the time, when someone challenges you, that's your standout.
No, Dorset Council have written a health and safety report. That has to be followed. So.
And it is, Karen. Had you been at the market on Thursday, you would have seen the direction of the stalls facing into the pavement as directed.
Right.
Can I ask a question at this stage?
Yes, please do,
Can I
John.
just clarify that if we have the stores facing the buildings, not the road, and they.
As we've always done in the past.
Two-way buses running up and down there, are they sanctioning the use by pedestrians of the road? They're calling it traffic management rather than pedestrian priority, but are they not happy with people being in the road? Does that report not say that people can be in the road, that you can't have the store facing into the road? Because if they are saying that, then we have to take that at face value, and therefore there is no harm in having the stores facing the buildings, not the road, and allowing people to use the road as they want.
Yes, well, which is what people do anyway.
I think that's exactly what the report's saying, John. They're saying that market for the condition for the road closure to continue, the conditions that need to be adhered to is market stalls facing the footway.
Yeah.
So turn around facing towards us. Buses, two-way buses being maintained. When a person views that's nonsense, but hey, that's what they want. Roadworks required in the area will take precedence over the market. Fair enough. Better signage to make pedestrians aware of vehicles to the road. So the assumption is pedestrians will still use the area because, of course, the TRO will be in there. But to make and then the minimum road width of 7 metres to allow an instance where large vehicles may need to pass each other. It's challenging down at the narrows, but
Maybe we should hold them to that. No. Take up chaffers. Yeah.
So that's actually following their guidance, which they're not happy as far as their health and safety is concerned, by letting people use the road.
that's the conclusion I've drawn from what's written in the report.
So it would make sense then to go ahead and vote
on option 2.
Knowing that it is sanctioned by the highway authority.
Yeah.
As I was just asked, that we add into it, that we make it an urgent point to find out why they are obsessed with having buses going up and down the high street. Because that's what we need to stop. That will change everything. So the doing stuff challenging that. That's
I don't think it has been sanctioned by the Highways Authority. It's been the actual no, it's 2 councillors. It's Councillor Ryan Bryan and another one.
Ray Bryan, that would be.
Ray Bryan.
Transport and environment is this decision. It's member led council.
But the actual health and safety report states you can't mix people and vehicles. It's quite clear.
Yes, I know, but on that basis, we shouldn't have any. They just don't make their report doesn't make sense. That's my point, Karen. We are mixing vehicles and people on our high street every single day.
But you're not listening. You're not listening. BB holders cannot get to the Thursday market with that barrier being there. And they got away with it with COVID-19. They can't continue getting away with discrimination. I have asked for this Equality Act impact assessment report. They have to produce it. They actually have to make sure absolutely every single person can access the market stalls, and they can't. So option 1 is the only option, or moving the market. People keep on suggesting to me moving it to Park Walk.
You can't, because it's too exposed to weather. The stalls can't stand up, Karen. Whenever we've suggested to people, for overflow, it's too weather dependent. I mean, it's bad enough on the high street as it is. So sadly, whilst one would love to see a market on Park Walk, it's not practical. I mean, I take your point about equality, I totally do, but, Piers, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I was going to try and answer some of John's question in relation to why the buses are effectively they're a priority for Dorset Council. They want to encourage as many people as possible to use what they call active travel by buses. So that's the reason why it's all part of the trying to tackle climate change.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah.
And it will be a brilliant idea in 5 years' time if we get it off the ground. In the meantime, it's no point in driving empty buses up and down the high street and stopping for this.
I completely agree. At the end of the day, the buses are the ones causing the accidents. They're the ones requiring to go both ways. And very rarely do you see a passenger on them. But
Andy.
we can talk about this to a blue effect.
Yeah.
I think we have discussed this and we are going to take it to committee and we're going to have a propose a survey in January to address this very point. I think it's absolutely critical. There is a policy that Dorset Council adopting. They're right.
Yeah.
But there are practical implications in our town and we need to be able to engage and debate them. I think, bearing in mind the time, I would like to go to standing order 1 of 4 to put the motion to a vote. We have option 2 proposed by yourself. Did you have a second? Because I'm content to seconds.
Good. Thank you very much.
But I would like to put it to the vote.
Okay, let's put it to the vote. All those in favour?
So this is for option 2.
This is for option, yes, for option 2.
This is the proposal to put it to the vote. This is the vote.
No, this is the vote. And the proposal was to go for option 2. Okay, so all those in favour? Those against? Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone.
Meeting closed at 9:17. Thank you.
Well done, members of the public, for hanging on in there.